Hello, and thanks for joining us on the podcast that discusses all things gaming. Coming to you from the home of Gen Con and the gaming capital of the world, this is The Established Facts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Established Facts. In response to a statement made by Fear the Boot, we have a prepared statement.
3 rings for the elven kings under the sky. 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone. 9 for mortal men doomed to die. 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all. 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness, bind them, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie.
Suck it, Chad.
Oh, man.
Now that we got that out of the way.
Right?
That was satisfying.
Right. So today on The Established Facts, we are going to talk about our versus topic of tabletop and LARP.
I'm sorry.
But I'm going to let you guys know who's here. I'm going to do the panel, starting with my left.
This is Tony.
Hey guys, this is Derek.
Big down into his ass.
Hey, it's Josh.
Dr. Deb is here.
Excellent job, Dr. Deb, delivering the canned statement, by the way.
One of my favorites, thank you so much.
You are welcome. We are going to talk about tabletop versus LARP on the Established Facts today. They are kind of like black and white. There's not a whole lot of semblance that goes together other than a lot of LARPs are kind of born out of tabletop games. So I'm just going to kind of open it up. We're going to do around the table, tabletop versus LARP.
Tabletop.
Fence sitter.
Tabletop.
I'm going to choose tabletop.
Tabletop.
Well, geez. I'm going to say, though I do enjoy a good tabletop, I'm going to play the LARP card so I can be the devil's advocate during the discussion.
And then we can smite the fence sitter.
Exactly.
I'm already warming up. So,
I knew I should
Derek,
have done this.
you're on the fence. Tell me why.
Because the two are just so different and just play styles. I really like the more active LARP, but I feel that tabletop you have a lot more freedom. So that's why it's just I have a hard time. I have a hard time choosing one or the other because I started RPGing, role playing as a LARPer, and then I moved into tabletop. So. I have a lot of fond memories of my vampire LARP. So,
Dr. Deb, I know you have limited as in zero experience as a LARPer, but so it's kind of one-sided for you, I guess. But what is it that you love or enjoy the most about tabletop games that you don't think that you could find in a LARP?
Well, even though I've never been in a LARP myself, I have watched people prep for LARPs.
Hey, Debbie.
Where we used to live.
Can I make one quick suggestion before
You
you go
may.
into your response?
You may.
Can you define LARP for us?
Well, it's very name, but I'll give it. The name is live action role play. So my picture of a LARP are
Bonus points for the girl knowing the name.
Uh-huh.
I have one extra caveat question.
Yes.
Have you ever done True Dungeon?
No.
Okay.
Have you tried to get into True Dungeon?
I was in True Dungeon this year.
Holy cow! I watched my husband stalk Gen Con's website.
Just saying.
I may eventually do it. I wanted him
has
to
a
try it out
restraining order.
first. I was going to throw him to smoke first, and I'll just follow in his footsteps.
Are you telling me that
you're going to... Well, it doesn't matter. Smoke's dead now. That's right. Smoke's dead. Anyone that was there, Smoke is dead.
It's not a spoiler. It already happened.
That's right.
My picture, to go back to Don's question, of LARPers are players, often in costume, not always, but often in costume, with mock weapons. So you've got your vinyl, your foam kind of weapons. Live acting the role play, doing motions as if you're, doing like a fighting kind of motion, doing the run away from the bad guy, do the stalking each other, as if you were really playing as your character in Dungeons and Dragons, almost like you were in a movie, a very, very low budget movie. But that's how I vision a LARP.
Which would still be better than the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Well, you said it, not me. Having watched people prep for LARPs, it's really cool to watch people prepping for LARPs. Like watching the costumes and the detail, and they try to get as ready as possible. And they get really excited, the people that I watch do it. But my issue is that's my issue, is all of that prep time to be able to actually step into and do this LARP. So even if you don't do costume, you still got to kind of think about action-wise, what are you going to do? And, if I'm going to have to run away, whereas I like being able to have the freedom of my imagination to be in this different world. LARPing, you're still on Earth. You're still here. But in my imagination, I can be anywhere. I can be Middle Earth. I can be in the middle of Star Wars universe. I can be anywhere. And my character is not trapped in my limitations. I am not a very strong person. I'm reasonably flexible. I'm sort of fast. But in my imagination, my character can be, big, buff, and tough. Can be tiny and it can be all of these things that I am not. Can run faster than a speeding bullet. And I like the freedom to be able to wander in my imagination.
So, Deb, I just have one quick comment. Mm-hmm. Have you ever, minus, I think, maybe the very first character you made, which ironically enough was huge, have you ever played in a role-playing game that did not involve Hero Lab? Minus your very first run at putting your character together.
Yeah, a lot of my early characters I did not use Hero Lab for.
Now,
I can think of 4 or 5 at least.
Going from level to level to level to level to level to level is the same prep as putting on a coat or having some type of sidearm that you're using, having a sword strapped to you. I honestly think, in my honest opinion, it takes me longer to prep for a role-playing game, a tabletop game, where I have dice and numbers and all this stuff that I have to put together, of course, before Hero Lab, than it does for a LARP. I mean, for a LARP, if I'm playing a strong dude, I put on an A-frame T-shirt and a pair of jeans and walk out the door with my combat boots on, and that's pretty much all there is to it.
Yeah, and there are several LARPs styles where you don't actually even have any weapons. The more social ones like the Masquerade or even those, you just don't even have weapons.
A lot of the White Wolf stuff, they don't even allow.
Yeah.
They don't even. I mean, unless it's like some sort of prop, and even then you have to get a lot of approval before you can even show up with it.
True.
Yeah, they're most of the White Wolf campaigns don't have a lot of that aspect. I have LARPed a couple times, but it's not true what you were saying about your character. Your character can have, take Vampire you can put more dots into strength, and your character is a lot stronger than maybe you may physically appear to be.
Be a bra.
Yeah, exactly. You can have you have a character sheet in LARP. You do. So you still have your stats and your abilities and stuff like that, and you still can use your extent to your imagination, because you don't physically have to act out everything you're saying you're doing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is what you're saying you're doing.
The one thing I noticed about LARP, again, I think I've only played one time personally, so I'm not going to speak like I'm an expert, but from what I've heard about LARP, from what I've seen with others that are playing LARPs and so forth, the big thing about a LARP is you are forced into being diplomatic without getting your diplomacy rolls. You are forced into being a liar without getting your bluff rolls. It's even taking it in retrospective to a game like Skyrim or Oblivion, you don't get your choices visibly in front of you. You're not given it's either this or this. It's whatever you say. If the storyteller's good with it, then it goes on, and they work from within that system. As long as it's not violating the system, the storyteller's trying to bring forward. But so it's more challenging for someone who's a thinker or who prefers to look at numbers
or an introvert.
Well, an introvert, yeah, it's very challenging for an introvert.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why I'm surprised I haven't necessarily just gotten involved. I haven't been drawn to a LARP yet.
I don't think that we have a lot.
Well,
we have Cam, or I would say there's probably 3 or 4 major.
Yeah, I'm not going to get started on Chemical.
Yeah,
rant on that.
There's the Freelands, which have now started listening to us, and are friends of ours as well. They've got 2 or 3.
Freelands.
Yeah, they've got 2 or 3 LARPs going now.
I think you just plugged a person.
I did plug a person. Okay.
Yes, Keith. We have now officially plugged a person.
It's 10 minutes in, and
it's
we plugged
10
a
minutes
person.
Right. Yes, dear.
At the beginning, someone, I think it was Mike, said that LARP and tabletop were black and white. But the way you're all describing it is not very black and white. You're describing the way that they're the same.
Well,
it just sounds like you got a little gray going.
The reason why I made the comment of black and white is because generally, if you look at it, you have tabletop, and if you look at the mechanics for tabletop, not all tabletops are driven on dice, but it's
a majority of them.
The majority, and I would say a positive majority, is driven on dice. So you have the element of randomness generated by dice, right? And then, so like Josh says, I'm going to try and lie to this guy, and I'm going to roll my bluff check. I rolled a 1. Obviously, I'm retarded at this moment and can't lie to this guy. It doesn't take into account the fact that you could be a 20th level rogue that has huge bluff, but at this whatever point in time, you can't lie to this guy.
Your tongue is tied.
Right. So in a LARP, it is all based on, okay, well, I have traits that make me better at lying or make me have better social traits or whatever that you use in your system for LARP. And though you're not rolling dice to get the randomness, you're using the randomness of whatever it is that I'm going to think of or whatever it is that Derek is going to think of. You have kind of the human element in the LARP.
It's more of a human element in a LARP. It's more along the lines of, if you want to think about it as a mix of sort of a game as well as interactive storytelling, it's more along the lines of improvisational theater than it is a game per se with randomness.
So it's more like a game like Fiasco than it is like
Yes.
Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
If Fiasco
That puts
done
it in
in
words I
person,
understand.
and like I was going to say, excuse me, is that it's a lot more of vocal intellect. Is how you describe how you're doing things than it is just okay, I rolled it and did it. You have to. It's also like 7C in an aspect of you have to very much describe exactly what you're doing to be able to completely pull off things you're doing.
Well, and the way we play Fiasco, whether it be correct or incorrect, it's the same way. We drive the story based off our scenes.
Yeah.
I will tell you, though, in my experiences as a LARPer and tabletop, I have made some very deep characters in tabletop games that I feel like I, as a player, am very, very connected to. And that kind of develops over the length of a campaign, be it a year-long campaign or a 5-year-long campaign. Regardless, you build a connection. The character has something of you in it. However, what I have noticed in a LARP system is you connect to characters much, much faster. Because not only are you
mean
doing...
like your personal characters?
Yes,
Or like okay.
I connect to the characters that I make because ultimately it's me driving the character. Mm-hmm. Where in tabletop, you have that system of there's a dice in between me and what I want to do,
and you've got a storyteller that's pulling you along, kind of in that direction.
Also, in the LARP concept, they have lots of LARPs, not all of them, have what are called downtime actions, and these are actions that physically take place between games. So if I'm just basing it off my experience in Vampire, if I'm a vampire who's a Ventrue who owns a bunch of banks and stuff downtown.
I figured you'd be a venturer.
Well, what else would I be?
I know.
I own a bunch of banks downtown. During my downtimes, I could turn around and start buying property on the south side. And I can just put this in my downtimes, write it in as an explanation, and then what I decide to do during the weeks between the games then starts affecting in-game content.
And you really, part of the other things that really tie you to the character really quickly is if you have props. Like, I played Malkavians forever in Vampire. And
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that's...
Neither am I.
And one of my gimmicks was that he had a little doll that he talked to and would talk back to him. Yeah, I actually brought.
See where it all
that
started from?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is.
Was it a teddy bear?
No, it was actually G.I. Joe.
I'm not surprised about that either.
That's even funnier.
I won't go. This is a PG-rated show, so I won't go into what his problems were. But yeah, it's. But having that doll, having that physical aspect, and like acting it out, like physically acting it out, really connects you to it instead of, oh well, I look like X, Y, and Z, and I go over to the inn and I sit down and have a drink of ale. So, Deb?
I was going to ask, because I'm thinking about our Star Wars game that John Pettit, that's for you, Keith, runs for us. And we sort of do a little bit of that in between our games. Like, he has had times where he's had us, write him emails or post on, website or whatever. Well, what are you doing? What are you researching? What are you thinking about in the off time? So there's a little aspect, I guess, of LARPing, and I didn't know that's what it was. I just thought, oh, that's kind of a neat idea. So could you blend them and do something like that, where in your downtime between them, you've got actions you're doing? That'd be really neat to me. Actually,
Deb, Michael and I can remember a game that we played that it was kind of a hybrid. It was a hero-based Heroes, the NBC show based game that someone had started up online, and it was a turn-based system where each person, very similar to like Fiasco, where you set up a scene, you would have a time slot where you would sit down with certain people in a scene, and each person would go in order, and they would explain their action in vivid detail, and then the next person would say, okay, well, while you're doing that, or in response to you doing that, I'm doing this. And then by the time it came back to you, the whole situation that you thought was going to happen could be completely different, which was a lot of fun because we weren't in the game for very long. The game didn't hold together for very long, but in the couple times that Mike and myself and my brother played, I actually had two characters, which was really difficult because the first scene that we played, one of the characters was an agent and one of the characters was a special. And so I was playing the agent who was coming after myself and Michael and my brother. So it was a lot of fun, but it was not easy. But what was fun about that is you can, in that kind of a situation, you don't have dice to change the story. You have other players that are changing your story.
And they do.
And
Kind of like Fiasco.
I have
ridiculous stuff happens.
Yeah, exactly. I have very limited experience with playing in a live action role play game. Meaning I've played once in a live action role play game. It was in a Sabbat game, a vampire game, which is Sabbat is the other side, kind of the bad guys, but not exactly.
Just got the bad rap.
Yeah, they just get the bad rap.
Don't all bad guys in their mind have a bad rap?
Well, no. If you read about what the Sabbat stand for and what the Camarilla stand for, they're kind of the opposite side of the same coin. I mean, they're
a gang, sort of.
Kind of
against the establishment type thing.
Kind of, not exactly. It's they're kind of.
The Sabbat are very overly religious as an organization.
Yeah,
they are. The Camarilla are very supposed to be democratic, which they're not.
It's more like honestly, in literal terms, it's more like the separation of church and state in a game. You have the Camarilla that say
We're the state.
Yeah, we have. These are how things need to be regulated. These are the laws of our people, basically. These are the laws of our creation. These are the laws of Cain. And then you have the Sabbat, which are like, no, we are the chosen ones of, a greater force, and we were given this gift to enforce it upon in whatever way we see fit. And that's kind of, that's not exactly, and like I said, I haven't played very much, but that's kind of the grasp that I get between the two. So in the Sabbat game that I played, it is definitely different than a tabletop roleplay game. A lot more different than I thought walking in. It was a lot of fun, but it was definitely something that you kind of have to mentally prepare for because it's a totally different style of roleplay. If you and I have a challenge against each other, then basically you play paper, rock, scissors, and if we tie, if you have higher traits than I do, you win. If you lose, you can retest if you have higher traits than I do, but there's still a chance of you losing still. And it's still random in that you kind of have a 33% chance any way you go because you can always tie. But it's fun because you are literally playing off of the response of other people. Whereas, and the other thing that I've noticed too is in the Sabbat game that I played, there's probably 12 to 15 people playing at one time.
That's a small one,
which is a lot to handle.
But it's more player driven.
It is. But what's hard about that is, as a tabletop, I would consider myself much more tabletop roleplay oriented than live action oriented. But as a tabletop player, you get thrown into a situation where a lot of times you're playing with the same group of players. Mm-hmm. You may be playing different characters. You may be playing in a different game. You may even have a different GM. But the chemistry between the players is usually the same. You have the people who really like to play support characters. You have the people who really like to play your big beefy guys, and you got the people who like to lay back in the cut and steal all the gold when nobody's looking. And I know I'm guilty of that. Thank you. But I'm just saying, that's kind of the constant when it comes to. And if you're not changing the players in which you play a tabletop roleplay with every time you sit down to play, then you kind of start to get into that melancholy player state where everybody kind of plays the same thing. Whereas with a LARP, you're playing with 2, 3, 4 times as many people, and it's a lot harder to regulate that. So,
and I'll say as we wrap up the discussion here, that we should come back and visit maybe LARP as a whole and do some kind of breakdown of that, and then tabletop as a whole and do some breakdown there, because there's just a lot going on. But I will say that the biggest thing that I struggled with going from tabletop to LARP is, much like Derek said, that in games where there's like 15 or 20 or 30, 50 players, in tabletop you have your initiative order, right? And you have your 2 minutes or however long it takes you to describe what you're doing in your turn, your 6 seconds, that everyone at the table is listening to what you're doing. So you're going to move through and you're going to hit this guy and you're going to do whatever, right? And then we're going to resolve your action and we're going to see what happens. In a LARP, you don't have your 6 seconds of fame, because while you have 6 seconds to do whatever you're doing this turn, so does 55 other people that are going at the exact same time that you are.
Well, it's not only just the combat; it's also the fact that you divide into small groups.
Well, and it's a spotlight issue as well.
Yeah,
because
totally.
You become, if Don and I, if we're all playing a vampire game together, we all have to have our own agenda. Mm-hmm. Then we have a group agenda, and then we have the agenda set upon us by people who are bigger and badder and been there longer than us.
That's what I experienced because I had never played in a game like that, and it was really tough because luckily I was playing with friends, and there were a lot, and I got thrown into a clan or a group with friends.
Pack?
Yes, thank you. A pack with friends. And so that was kind of nice to be able to talk to people that I knew outside of the game say, okay, I'm totally green in this. I'm a super noob when it comes to LARPing, so help me out.
Super noob.
That's right. And so it was cool because you get a chance to experience a different side of the same role players that you play games with. And what's neat to see is people who maybe inside their own little box of tabletop roleplay might play a support character, turn around, and when they play in a LARP, they take a leadership role, or they become that conniving guy who's like, I'm just out for myself, really. If you're willing to pay me, I'll go and kill whoever you want me to kill. Like it's really interesting to see how going from a tabletop all up in your head game to a I'm standing in front of my opponent physically kind of game can change the way that you play.
You especially for White Wolf, you really have to sort of throw out combat for a little bit because it's much more diplomatic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think that Mike, you're right. We have to come back to this topic as a full topic.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And I've got Mind's Eye Theater, so I can show you guys what.
Yeah, I've got a Mind's Eye Theater book.
Yeah, we have
somewhere in my.
I'm very familiar with the Laws of the Night system.
Okay.
Haven't touched any of the new stuff though.
There are a couple of our listeners I know of that do LARPing as well that I think could provide some nice input on the site.
Yeah, I know of a couple people that would probably be down for, even if we did just like a couple little small game sessions just to check it out.
Yeah.
That would be down for getting into it.
I know we know a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we will come back and visit LARP and Tabletop, and we'll break them down for you guys, so you can kind of get a better understanding as to what it is that we're talking about. I just think that there's just too much meat and too much stuff there to go over.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to move right to our discussion topic. Kind of ironically enough, talking about the differences between tabletop games and LARP, you start to develop this concept of building some kind of story or involving your players in some type of campaign. So we're going to talk about the concept of building a story from the ground up or starting a campaign from the ground up. I know I have some limited experience. I know Derek has extensive experience in this, so I think we all kind of have a little bit of little golden nuggets of knowledge that we can add to this. Not to say that we're expert campaign builders or expert story builders, but I will tell you that we have all played in stories and we've all played in campaigns, and we have watched what our actions have done to them, and can kind of give, I guess, some backhanded comments on campaigns and stories and stuff as you go through and build them. Derek, I see you crying. Perhaps you'd like to start?
I was also going to say, I think about half of us have either designed or are in the process of designing campaigns.
Yeah, or settings.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Take a deep breath.
Here's a tissue.
Woosah. Woosah.
The first thing is to understand your players, and then if your players are my players, then forget about building a campaign.
Or is it more like watch them
no idea what
build
you're
it
talking
and then
about.
destroy it around you?
Yeah, because it's sad to see all of your plans just get burned.
They might get burned, but ultimately then extras come out of it.
I agree.
They might get burned, but that's where toast comes from.
Yes, and toast is great.
Toast is yummy. So I actually start with a theme. When I start a campaign, it's like, what do I want to explore today? And
Because you write your campaigns
Derek,
daily.
how about we just do that? How about we just we'll just go around the table, and you say you start with a theme. How about we just kind of hit what, if we were going to start a campaign, what we think we would start with, and we kind of explain why.
oh yeah,
That way we don't just kind of plow through an idea and then try and backtrack.
okay, that's fine.
You think that
That works.
work?
That works.
Okay, so Derek's going to start with a theme, so go ahead.
No, you don't just get one word. Explain why you start with a theme.
Oh,
Go.
There are certain things that, for instance, my big kick for the past 7 years right now has been balance. I've been really intrigued by exploring that, and
Your feng shui is out of balance.
Yes. So, like good and evil, and magic and technology, that sort of thing, and that's what the Gen Con campaign was born out of. That's what a lot of my campaigns after that have been born out of. Hero's Love Song was really an exploration of loss and how do kids handle traumatic experiences. So it can go like really specific or really broad. So, and I also wanted to. A lot of my themes recently have been faith-based things. I've really wanted to explore how do you handle multiple pantheons within the same world? How do you deal with gods from different planes? That sort of thing. So,
Donald,
I would say, in the times that I've built, like I'm currently in the middle of building a campaign setting for everybody to run probably October or so, I really try to focus first on my main antagonist, mostly because I like to interweave wherever the story gets taken back into the guy who's setting it all up. Whether it be the fun like twists of like the main good guy is really also the main bad guy, or whether there are whether I can remember. I've referred to the game a couple times, but a game I ran quite a while back, the Red Hand of Doom campaign setting, or the Red Hand of Doom module.
Great module.
It is a good module, but it's a little it's long and it's very combat heavy, and if you don't have a very combat heavy party, or if you're playing with people who enjoy to role play 70 to 80% of the time versus hack and slash 70 to 80% of the time, then it's going to be a tough game to run for people. Even if you have a good mix, it's still a really tough game to run. So what I found myself doing was basically I gave the party a central bad guy that they were after, and it just so happened that these forces, and there is a central bad guy in Red Hand of Doom, but he wasn't crunchy enough for me. He it's just kind of, it's a black and white pen and paper bad guy. And so I kind of based off of what Derek said, I at that point had known what my party was all about, and so I took a couple bad guys that had appeared throughout some of the past sessions, and I made them the main antagonist, and the game turned around very quickly once there was that drive and that initiative to stop these big bad nasties or whatever it may be. Not to steal a line from Josh, but I really like to focus on the bad guys when I watch movies and when I read books and stuff like that. They're the ones that I always focus on. I've always been, if you talk about, I've always been a big fan of like the X-Men comics and stuff like that, but I loved the guys who were like the anti-heroes or the bad guys, that have. Magneto is a perfect example of that. He is a bad guy for so long, and he has this motivation, and you just wonder why. Like a lot of the good guys, they're all of their drives are on the surface. You know why they're going after these people. You know what their story is for the most part. But when it comes to guys like Magneto, or when it comes to guys like Sabretooth, or even people that aren't necessarily the baddest of the bad guys, Professor Snape in the Harry Potter series, he's not a villain. He's not a bad guy per se, but he is that kind of gray. He's that guy that falls into the gray. He falls between the cracks of the good guy and the bad guy. And
very similar to actually what our Fear the Boot guys talked about in the last couple episodes. They talked about dark characters.
Yeah, I mean, and you can play a dark character, and it can be a good antagonist and not necessarily be the worst of the worst.
Yeah, and that's for enemies. Oh man, I despise black enemies, black and white enemies. If gray enemies are the only things that I'll deal with.
I like black enemies for like people like Carrie and Debbie who like to play the paladins or like the holy rollers, because it gives you that pinnacle of motivation to be the holiest that you can be.
It forces
against the worst of the worst, right?
Right. I mean, that's what drives a paladin. That's what would drive.
But
cleric.
when it comes to substance of a bad guy, it's always one of the coolest bad guys that I have been able to experience as I've been reading the Dark Elf series. Artemis Entreri is ridiculous because he's not. I mean, he's a bad guy, but he's not necessarily that far off of the main character in Drizzt. He's kind of that. He's more of like a charcoal gray. You know what I mean? He's a little darker, but he's still. There are times when he kind of shows, or like Riddick or somebody like that, you know, he kind of shows that glimmer of hope, and then he stabs some innocent person in the back or something, you know. So, but go ahead, Josh.
Okay, you know, when we were initially talking about this, I thought mine was going to be similar to the main antagonist, but I remembered how the one game and the other games I've tried to run actually started, and surprisingly enough, it was the campaign setting where I wanted this to go down actually ended up starting it. Because when I first saw the world's largest dungeon, I was like, God, that's so expensive, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I started making money. Because there's usually that point, like, if a role player starts making money, they start buying books. Whether they really have a reason or not, it's like, I have money, I'm going to go buy a book.
I want books that I'll never read. Ah!
I'm guilty.
So I bought The World's Largest City by AEG when it came out, because I was like, I could totally run a campaign out of this, and I don't have to need any other book except the core rule books. I can do this. So we started the game about 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, and I'm skimming through it. I'm like, this is the bad guy district, and this is the big level 20 paladin vampire, Sir Milton Derrick. I'm like, yes, he's going to be our bad guy. That game died after about a year and a half, but got resurrected with a new group of people, some old, some new. And funny enough, one of the players was Derek, which was funny. And it turned out that bad guy ended up crossing into another game as a bad guy in that game, which was really neat. My second game that I attempted to run and didn't get too far was the Expedition to Undermountain, which, from what I understand, is one of those classic...
It's a really good campaign setting.
Yeah, just in general, because it's that big, deep dungeon developed by Wizards of the Coast rather than somebody else. So, apparently I was drawn to where the world's largest city has now become Xenopolis in the world of Peлагane, or Xeno Hollow in the future. I destroyed it. That's how it went down. Just get over it. And, you know, Undermountain obviously hasn't come into play because it's copyrighted right now, but that doesn't mean there isn't some giant dungeon under Peлагane that hasn't been developed yet.
There is now.
Okay. Sweet. Anyway.
I happen to know a good mountain range it could be under.
Yeah, I bet you do.
I do too.
So, I mean, apparently campaign setting, so that, I would say that has drawn me thus far. Deb?
Well, I've actually got two thoughts. Uh-oh. One is, it's fascinating. Last night I was reading a book given to me by a friend of mine. It's Tolkien trivia. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. You all know that out there by now about me. And it talked about how Tolkien's inspiration, because ultimately we kind of all of us gamers do feel that affinity for Tolkien because of what he wrote in Lord of the Rings, and we've got Dungeons and Dragons and everything went bananas after that. Tolkien's inspiration was actually the languages that he invented. He invented 3 or 4 separate languages and then built the story from that, which is so... I don't even know how to describe it. So brainiac, so esoteric. It's like, how did he think like that? So that was Tolkien. So there you are, J.R.R. Tolkien. There's your nod from me. But for me, I was sitting here trying to think.
As if he didn't get one earlier.
Yeah, at the beginning of the
Keith.
show. Yeah.
Okay, so I gave him 2 nods. Yay,
Okay.
me! Okay,
Chad.
all right. But I was sitting here because I've never built a campaign setting. And right now, I really have no desire to be perfectly blunt. But I thought, what would I do if I did? And I thought of the TV shows that I am glued to, like the ones you've got to watch the next episode or the world will end. And my favorite
Like
is
Once Upon a Time.
Like Once Upon a Time.
Yes.
But what is it about Once Upon a Time that draws me back? And there is ultimately a lot of puzzles to be solved in that. There is so many mysteries wandering through Storybrooke, Maine. That's another plug. That need to be solved. I like the puzzle solving. I like the question marks of what really happened behind the scene. What's really going on? You think that was what was happening, but by the way, this was what was going on behind it. I would like a layered story. A story that's only one-dimensional. You go into the dungeon, beat the dragon, you get the money and the girl, and the end.
Slash Mario.
I liked that when I was 7 in Nintendo. I don't like that as much anymore today, although I'll still play Mario.
That's why Microsoft invented more buttons than A and B.
So for me, it would be how much depth can I put into my story of constantly asking the question, and what else? And what else happened? And who else? And where else? I would be constantly layering it. So just when you think you've figured it out, okay, now I really know the story. Well, actually, no, you don't. That would probably be, so the puzzle, the mystery would probably
Okay,
be what I would
J.J.
do.
Abrams.
Yeah. I watch all J.J. Abrams movies.
No, that's isolate them in one place and make 4 seasons out of it. That's different.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But
And then give people an ending they definitely were not expecting.
Always.
Okay, I guess we're at me. I'm kind of weird. I like when if I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's an
well.
understatement.
Raise your hand if that's the case. Oh, everybody raise hand. Fantastic.
Right. Anyway, I'm kind of weird when it comes to like campaign settings or stuff like that, because what really drives me to design that stuff is the end. Because I'm kind of working with Derek to help flesh out his campaign setting, and I have an end in mind of where this particular area of his world is going to go, and so I have this big shining star at the end of the tunnel, and I just need to fill in all the stuff of how it got there. And to me, it's a lot easier to know where I'm going when I have something in mind at the end than if I'm writing a story from, I have this big bad guy. Ultimately, I know they're going to fight the bad guy, but, okay, this big bad guy, now I'm starting here, I'm starting there, or I'm just starting from a setting. Because if I'm starting from a setting, there's just so much stuff that I can, okay, well, are they going to be focused in the town, or are they going to be in the woods, or is it going to be in just this particular setting? There's just so much there. For me, if I have an ending point, like where I want to take the entire campaign or the characters or whatever, if it's a hack and slash game or if it's very, very story driven, if I have an end, it really helps project the whole campaign kind of to where I want them to go.
Yeah, but sometimes you can't do that because your characters, your players, take you off into alpha direction.
You just trust me that if I want to blow things up, things will blow up whether they're there or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's true.
No.
2 people took out a city of Menzo Branson just because they thought it was funny.
No, that is not true. I won't railroad them.
And it wasn't Menzo Brands.
Sorry, my apologies.
I found it
City.
very interesting in the Red Hand of Doom that you ran. They have a timeline initiated in this game that there are things that are going to happen whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
So I have
There's
end.
there's actually there's a standard timeline. Everything that is on the timeline is going to happen, but there's a point where in the very beginning of the campaign you can go and destroy this bridge. If you destroy this bridge, it delays the army 3 days.
Oh,
but they're still gonna get wherever they're trying to go. And if you do this, then it's just gonna stretch
but that's
them
a
farther.
choo-choo.
It is, but it doesn't feel like one because there are things that are developing. It provides to me. It provides like a little bit of depth because the world moves around you.
Right.
As a hero,
Right.
if I'm tromping through the city doesn't come to life when I walk into it.
And if you if you look at 2 towers, when you have an army of tens of thousands of people, one bridge is not going to stop an army of that many.
But people's feet will get wet.
Yeah, well, they're Uruk-hai. They're just going to kill each other and lay each other down as a bridge and walk across the
that'll
dead
work.
bodies. That's all I'm saying. It's like
He has a point.
when you have a horde of just that, when you have a horde of people that are motivated by something else, the world is going to continue to develop around you regardless
I
of
would
what you do.
really like to play in one of your games, Mike, because I think that would be very interesting.
It's very neat because I've kind of fallen in love with that since I played in that game with Don, and I wasn't there the whole time they played the game. I came in to add to the party to give them a little bit of beef for fighting. And as a character that was kind of introduced into the system, we kind of became kind of superimposed onto this huge timeline. And it was really intriguing to me to realize, and I think it was the first time that I've experienced the fact that though I was the hero, the rest of the world moved on whether I was there or not. And it was a really neat idea.
I've mentioned this game in previous episodes before, but Mike, you played it with me. You remember that Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. I to this day wish they had made a sequel to that. I know it got in there and then got canceled and all this stuff or whatever. It was a video game. It was on the PlayStation 2. It may have been on Xbox as well. And you were playing the Fellowship, but it was like the Fellowship second string. You were all the same classes, everything, and you followed like 3 or 4 hours behind the Fellowship.
Yeah.
And
If Gimli falls, I'm in. If Gimli falls, I'm in.
So at the end, where the big battle's going on to distract Sauron on the other side, your party is fighting the Eye of Sauron. I don't know how you fight the Eye of Sauron, but they did. As a matter of fact, if you have the right stuff, you can beat the Eye of Sauron in 2 rounds. It's really horrible. But anyways, but it's the same idea.
That sounds like a game that Derek's running.
Oh, it's so funny.
Wow.
Oh
I
wait,
got Josh down to 7 hit points.
Yes,
this
he
sounds
did.
like the first game I ever played with Derek.
Yes, he did.
But in that being said, the Lord of the Rings story continued on. No matter what your little party went and did that was, stupid and whatever, because you're doing the same thing. You're fighting, the big elephants. You're fighting the Uruk-hai. You're fighting the orcs and goblins and whatever. But the story still went on, and I think it's a neat concept too. I agree with you completely on that. I can't wait to play in another game like that.
Yes, Donald.
Very quickly, I think what would be really fun to do would be for somebody, like, for example, in reaction to the destruction of Xenopolis or a couple of the other games that we've been running here, if we were to actually write out the timeline and then play a game from a different perspective based on that same timeline. So, like, maybe you play a commoner game, and now you are a commoner in Xenopolis as it's falling. And
I can tell you what that game is. Oh, look, there's a big rock. Splat.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, like, even in response to going to Ravenloft or whatever. Just taking the other perspective. Maybe you are a hero, but you are a lesser known hero, or you're a lower level hero, and you see these big hulky people with shiny armor and pretty swords and weapons come in and destroy all this stuff, and then they leave, and now you have to deal with the onslaught of what happens after they've gone. Just kind of, I think that would be a neat way.
It'd be good in a game where the city doesn't explode,
or disappear.
whatever.
Yeah,
Not necessarily. I mean,
like Brigadoon.
with what is being developed by Michael and Don and so forth, the story that's happening after that.
Yeah, it
And
continues on,
This
but-
world's largest city has 1 million people or something in it. Not all of them are destroyed or teleported or whatever, you find out later, but they have to disperse, and thus more nations are formed and more tribes are formed and all this stuff. So that could be an interesting thing. What if you are the group of elves that goes and establishes this little town on the far western side of the
It's southern.
whatever.
Southern.
Well, it doesn't mean I'm trying not to give it away by going the opposite
Southeast.
way. Jeez.
They're plugging their own selves.
That's right.
Tony?
Well, for me, it's I'm mostly about concept. The campaign setting that I'm doing has been originally came out of a picture, and the whole thing just kind of unfolded from there. I found this picture online, loved it, loved the concept of it. I think Halo 1 was out at the time, which really had no influence other than it just kind of half reminded me of it.
It was the birth of the greatest hero of all time.
whatever.
And the greatest loser.
What? Oh wait, yeah.
No, that would be Cubert.
It's true. It's true. Caused a lawsuit.
Actually, I'm sorry. The greatest loser of all time.
I'm not allowed to comment on this.
Based on
That's right.
the results of February, March, April, would be Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, she kind of really did suck. Anyways, moving on. So I saw this picture, and then so it got me thinking about the concept of building a story and building a campaign based around it. And then, what was it? Maybe 8 months later, the same author who did the original photo had another photo there, or another piece of artwork that he created, which was the outside of the ring. To anybody who has no idea what I'm talking about, the concept of my campaign is mostly about a ring wrapped around a planet. Think Halo, but much, much, much bigger, with less flood. But basically, it's bigger than Halo and smaller than Ringworld, Ringworld. But the thing about it is they showed this secondary picture, which kind of completed what the purpose of the ring was, and in my mind, it just drove where it goes. So that's a lot of where I start. Is the first thing I do is I think of concept and what is going to be about, not necessarily what it's going to end with, but what it's going to be about.
And we've all described at this point all the steps of a campaign, creating a campaign. You have your setting, you have your theme, you have your concept, you have your bad guy, you have your plot.
In the middle of that, you have your players.
Who cares about them? So,
They're really
give 'em a rope.
formalities.
Just give them a
Love it
rope.
all.
I don't know. You keep
None.
killing them off. We may not get the chance to.
Yeah,
I haven't
about
been able
that.
to touch you guys. I mean, I cheered when I got you down to 7 hit points.
Yeah, but
so,
then he stuffs
Notice
us
it
all
was
into a
still
little.
only 7.
I know.
Then he stuffs us into 5 little almost caskets and tells Deb's character
6.
to stand and watch.
6.
Sorry, it was 6 caskets. Sorry.
Yeah,
By the way,
I like
stand over there and watch.
I like the concept of sacrifice. I like the concept of consequence to your actions. So,
Like what Tracy was saying.
yeah.
I agree.
So
Give them a rope.
So yeah, I mean, we've done this a little bit more disjointed, but I mean, we've described essentially what a campaign needs. But they're right. I mean, you need to understand your players' characters, what they want to play.
Yeah, the thing I find interesting about that we just explained all these elements of a campaign setting. I think at some point we're going to come back and just like we did with LARP, we're going to have to maybe focus a little bit more on each of these, where you find your settings, what ideas you have for settings, or your stories, or your bad guys.
I smell a series.
Especially
Oh, yeah.
bad guys. Wouldn't you agree, Don? I think bad guys are a great topic.
Bad
Oh
guys are an
my.
awesome topic.
Boy,
Wow.
So, Don,
fail.
if you were
You guys
going
are
to
as subtle
talk
as a
about
sledgehammer.
bad guys,
Yes.
Are we still going with this ruse?
we are.
It's not a ruse.
No,
we pulled
it's
it
not
off
a
last,
This
spring.
So
Oh,
we are going to be starting a fun new series, very similar to our Video Game Madness series that we did in the spring.
More of a tournament.
It is more of a tournament, but it is a series of shows, and it will not, at least at this point, it may change between now and then, but at this point, it's not going to take up the whole episode like our Video Game Madness themed episodes did. There may be a portion where we have like a light discussion on who versus who, but what we would like to do with your help, and you, I mean everyone who's listening to the show that's not sitting at the same table as myself, we want to compile a list of about 64 different bad guys or villains. Now we're going to have some more details on what qualifies for an appropriate villain for this specific contest of villainy. And that's going to get posted probably in some show notes and stuff like that. But we really want to compile a big list of bad guys, and then we're going to put up that list for everyone to vote on, and we're going to take the top
32.
32.
It was requested we did 32 for the
Video Game Madness. Yeah, we weren't sure if we could actually how to handle that, but now that we have a little bit more experience with it, we're going to do 32 bad guys.
And I will directly say right now, this is not necessarily video game bad guys. It's
No.
gaming bad guys now.
Right.
Gaming villains.
And one thing we're probably gonna discuss is just kind of how far into the gaming genre versus other areas you can get with your bad guys. But like I said, those more details will definitely be out within the next show or two. But
I was just biding my time. I was going to say I was going to elect Chupa already.
Okay, well.
No, I think we're going to elect Chupa as the remote referee.
Oh, okay.
That
Guest
makes
referee.
sense. Yeah.
So basically, we want to compile.
Commissioner, but okay.
Commissioner.
Yeah, there you go, Commissioner.
Oh, yeah,
Chupa
Chupa's
the
totally the
Yeah.
commissioner.
Our evil Ewok commissioner.
We're going to take the top 32 voted on villains, and we're going to put them head-to-head in the same style of bracket. We're going to do voting just like we did with the Video Game Madness, so it's going to be a lot of fun. The winner, the villain that beats all other villains, is going to go head-to-head with the winner of this year's Video Game Madness. Probably around
Super Bowl
time-ish, more than likely. And then that will kind of, in a little bit later than that, we'll kick off our new Video Game Madness tournament. But
our Heroes tournament.
Right, Heroes tournament, right.
As it's going to be rebranded.
That's right. So please
new name.
please give us suggestions. We've already got a few floating around. And we would love your input on this. This is going to be a really fun, little short as in time, not short as in duration of series that we're going to do. So I'm pretty sure I covered at least the basics.
So, Donald,
Yes.
I see Josh holding a letter here.
Oh, that's right.
Josh, do you have mail?
I do. As a matter of fact,
You have mail.
I have.
You have mail.
Got mail.
I have a digital
Oh, that's
postcard.
something.
You got some mails.
I have a digital
female.
postcard. As a matter of fact, a postcard
Oh, a postcard.
that has
Where's
instructions
it from?
to write a
Sorry.
postcard from a dungeon. I was getting there, I promise.
sorry.
It's just
If
kept
anybody
interrupting
else
me.
feels like they're listening to a PSA from like their high school,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
We're doing
I'm right
that
there
on
with
purpose.
you.
It's okay.
Yeah.
No, I actually have a posting that's on the Fear the Boot forums that will actually end up on our website, and the postcards from the dungeon and Kicked in the Dice Bags have both made mention of this as well. The 5 podcasts affiliated in the not Fear the Boot network, since apparently they can't be a network and be affiliated all at the same time. I don't really know
We're
how it
in
works.
the
There
Fear
too.
the Boot affiliation.
Or
technically
I'm pretty sure it's an assimilation at this point.
I think it's
Well,
a symposium.
you know,
Or
we're
maybe
just,
Symposium.
we're just gonna, for now, so the Chad doesn't think we're kissing his ring. This is the established
Or other
affiliation. Thank you
pieces.
very
That's
much.
right.
No, did you have another name there, Mike?
I'm okay. I was going to say it was the Podcast Alliance, but it's
Oh,
cool.
Podcast Alliance.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
I think we're gonna coin that one.
Yeah.
Coined by the
trademarked.
Established Facts.
That's right.
Kiss
Yeah.
that ring.
Hey!
But to kind of simplify what's going to happen. Again, we're going to post the rules and stuff. I'm not going to go through all those with you, but ultimately, what you're going to do is you're going to take you as a character, and you are going to write a postcard from a dungeon. Now, in dungeon, I loved how this was explained. It can either be your standard fantasy dungeon stuck underneath the bowels of a mountain and so forth, trying to hide from this dragon, or it could be stuck up in the top of a skyscraper being surrounded by zombies in current time, or even up in a spaceship that, similar to Dead Space,
Or being chased with the Benny Hill theme of Yakety Sax.
Yakety Yak, you mean? Yes, it is
Sax.
Yakety Sax.
It
It's the name
is
of the song.
Yakety
You're
Sax.
right.
I looked
Thank
that
you.
up. Yes.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
But ultimately, what you're going to do is you're going to write a postcard, and then I love how Dan put this, the Zelda mailman shows up. Obviously a mail service that there is no reason why in the world they're running, just happened to conveniently walk up on you and take your postcard.
Or the Solar Angel Union 457.
Sure. Yes.
I hate you.
Because we use... We use unionized Solar Angels for delivering packages here. We'll
has
come
happened.
and take your postcard. Take your postcard and mail it to a address that we'll post on the page. International are being accepted as well. And what we're going to do is once they all come in, Postcards from the Dungeon's going to take those postcards, split them up into 5 equally distributed as possible, send them to each of the podcasts. We will then pick our top 5, and from that pick our top 1. However, you will not know if you are in the top 5 unless you listen to the 5 podcasts during the month of November. October 31st is the deadline. I can't say that specifically.
Now, if you are international, it has been suggested that you actually FedEx or ups the your letter to postcards, and I would also suggest that as
that way you speed that up and so forth.
Yeah. No ups.
Can't. P.O. Box.
Oh yeah, because it's a P.O. box. We'll look into that.
Wah,
We'll look
Priority.
into that.
I would
Maybe
suggest
priority
that
or
first
express,
class or
yeah.
priority mail.
Right, and we'll look into that as well. But again, what'll happen once
Drop it off at your closest American
Apparel.
No, I was going to
Embassy?
say embassy.
The closest
Yeah.
But
embassy and-
at once each podcast picks their top 1, the names will be blurred out, the addresses will be blurred out, and they will be posted for voting. Each of those top 5 will receive a game purchased by Fear the Boot, apparently, at least according to Dan. Or we're
And
going
I
to be.
get
I don't
purchased by us.
know. Well,
I'm not paying for it.
Unfortunately, we're not rolling in those big
Right.
podcast bucks yet.
and
Yeah.
they will receive a reasonable role-playing board game, whatever that may be. And reasonable meaning if Dan deems it to be unreasonable, he'll just tell you no. That's exactly what he said. And then the winner of this top 5 will gain 3 more picks as well. So
Nice.
with a total of 4 games for that.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's a great prize.
It really is. Especially for all you got to do is mail in a postcard.
Yeah.
Make it creative.
The creative.
I love how Tracy Hickman puts it. And your killer breakfast, if you want to stick up there longer, you have to do one of, I think it's 4 things. You either A, have to do something brave, you have to do something stupid, which oftentimes are the same thing. Or it's the 3 things. Or you have to do something entertaining. Either way, you need to do something that's going to make us notice it and choose you. So be ready. The information will be up when this podcast drops. So,
Clearly on its head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
And I will probably have an announcement about a hosting change next podcast because I need to get more information.
you may have one.
I have one. I will not be around for probably the next 2 or 3 episodes due to I am moving to Florida. I have a new job, and the next episode I'll be in transit. Either I'll be in transit or I'll be in Florida, and then the next 2 episodes I'll be figuring out my new work schedule, and I may not have access to record.
I will let you know, Tony, that podcasting over Skype is not as glamorous as it may seem. So, just let you know.
Okay.
However, there are no moose in Florida.
That's
For our alligators.
Chomp, chomp.
And
Postcards
apparently, well,
from the
Isaac's no
swamp.
longer in Florida.
Well, there you go.
he moved on.
However, I believe that if there's no air conditioning in Florida, you might be dead.
Yeah,
Point
but
taken.
luckily the part of Florida that I am moving to apparently has not had a hurricane hit it in 90 years. So even if one does
That's
come through,
fortunate.
chances of getting re-hit are negligible in my lifetime.
I love how we're planning for his imminent doom.
That is not
You know
a smart
we're
way
gamers.
to say something
What are
like
we
that.
doing?
I don't even know what he said.
That's
Good.
I stopped listening.
I've blocked it
5
out.
minutes ago.
I hate you all.
He's leaving us, so we just ignored it. Oh, he just said he's leaving. Flip.
But yeah, I'll be back as soon as time permits and internet permits.
And technology.
Oh, I'll have the technology. It's just
Mike, do you
Internet
have
time.
anything for us?
Technology.
We just don't have the budget, so he's more like the $6 man.
hey.
Oh, that's
I do. As we wrap up the established facts, on the last episode, our interim host, Big Don,
Yeah.
established that, remember, when you wear a costume, you are always in control. So today I'm going to establish a very special established fact. This is a first combo established fact. Deb, I need your help.
I'm here for you.
I knew you would be. So, Deb, I'm looking at Don's hand over there. Mm-hmm. Do you see that ring?
What ring?
The ring on Don's hand right there. What does that say? What does that say on the inside, Deb?
One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie.
Thanks,
Love
everybody.
you, Chad.
Bye.
Bye.
Suck a Chad.
Thank you for listening to The Established Facts. Please visit us at theestablishedfacts.blogspot.com. Also, visit us at our Facebook page, facebook.com/theestablishedfacts. To show us your support and buy some merchandise, go to cafepress.com/castingrobot.